You said, if Geneva 2 fails, Geneva 3 will not be about Syria alone. It will be about how to end a war raging across the entire Middle East.
That's right.
This morning, almost on the anniversary of January 25th in Egypt, there were car bombs, and they were targeting the police. I mean, the instability is palpable. What do you mean by this, and what is your real worry and concern when it comes to what's happening in the Middle East?
I think if we can't stop this now, we are looking at the equivalent of the European 30 Years' War in the Middle East. The European 30 Years' War was driven by two things: religious conflict between the Protestants and the Catholics, and territorial revision, right? But all the principalities, all the states wanting to redraw borders. That is a toxic combination. So you hear people on panels say, well, this is the end of Sykes-Picot, we're going to redraw the borders of the Middle East. When we've redrawn borders before in places, be they Africa or Europe or Asia, millions of people are displaced and die. I don't think the world can just sit back and say, well, gee, they're going to redraw them. That is a terrible combination. You see, an arc of crisis, you see religious divisions, you see the terror. And what I'm most worried about is the destruction of Lebanon again, the fragmentation of Lebanon into different communities, the destabilization of Jordan as well as Egypt through refugees, the coming apart of Iraq. So you have Kurdistan and kind of an Al-Qaeda Sunni enclave. I think we're risking this whole region going up in smoke in the sense of displacement of people, violence, and just radical instability.
And of course, to your point, as you know, the region, 70% of which is, I think, under the age of 29, approximately. And, I obviously have a very close affinity to this part of the world. And what troubles me, you also talked about the limitation of power, if you will, on America's part. I mean, you said Obama has a real understanding of the limits of our power. It's not that the U.S. is in decline, it's that sometimes the world has problems without the tools to fix them. Now, when we look for solutions, and as you're describing, the drawing borders, I mean, South Sudan now has a refugee problem, and it's a crisis yet again, the Central African Republic. It almost seems, being here at Davos, and perhaps this is, because I'm speaking to many people from many different disciplines, that there are too many crises at the same time. Maybe I'm revealing my naivete and my age, but how do you prioritize these things? I mean, at the New America Foundation, or just on the policy level, how can we choose where to intervene? And is it wrong? I mean, there was a debate for a while about whether we should have intervened militarily in Syria. Is it too late now? Obama had drawn the red line, but then many months, years had passed and nothing had happened. Is it too late?
I don't think it's too late. I mean, so I do think Obama understands the limitations of U.S. power in the sense that he doesn't believe you can send in an army and rebuild a state. And he understands that people themselves have got to really be the ones to build their states, and that we can help, but we can't go in. So that's right. But where he, I think, is wrong is he's not willing to use an essential tool, which is that diplomacy has to be backed by the credible threat of force. And when there was the chemical weapons, and it was very clear he was prepared to use force. He's moving the ships in place. He's making the moves. Suddenly, in the first place, the Al-Qaeda folks headed for the hills, and al-Assad changed his behavior on a dime.
Of course.
And my view is, unless we say,
because he knew he could.
Of course. Of course. And he knew that suddenly he was in danger. If those missiles start falling, that's Assad and his people who are at risk. I think today Obama has to say, either we get an agreement in Syria or we are prepared to use force, because we are not going to let the entire country fragment. We are not going to let another 100,000 people be killed and millions of people be displaced. It's not just chemical weapons that's a vital interest for us. The stability of the region is a vital interest for us, and for that we will in fact be prepared to take action. Not boots on the ground.
Of course.
But you can take out Assad's air force on the ground, you can strategically target key places, you can change the balance of power in a way that will force people to negotiate.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more about, drawing this red line and then abandoning this red line or walking away from it. And, just very quickly, to be timely for a moment, the UN rescinding the invitation to Iran in Geneva. Your thoughts on that? I mean, it seemed to be a messy political situation, no matter how you looked at it. But Iran's heavily involved
It is.
in Syria.
It is.
You know, Hezbollah, until they went in, which of course, as you know, even though they had a lot of casualties, they made a lot of losses. I mean, they're playing a very critical role in the region and in Syria, let alone Lebanon. What were your thoughts about that move?
This was tricky because Iran also, you know, the Iranian government is balancing hardline critics who have to be kind of neutralized with the demands of a larger public who clearly do want to be reconnected to the world. In this instance, for the hardliners, Iran couldn't say that they were coming to Geneva to talk about a transition.
Right.
And that was a red line for us and for everybody else. So we really did want Iran there, but Iran wouldn't come on the terms that everyone had agreed, so the U.S. kind of had to draw the line, and it's not a great outcome, because it would be a better conference with Iran there, but this was just an intersection of Iran's domestic political needs with the rest of the world's needs that didn't work. I'm hoping there's some back channeling.